We are finally entering the final act of a 25-year-old story, and the roster of active, top-tier fighters has reached an overwhelming scale. This volume of legendary characters has led to a mess of contradictory power rankings, where the same character can be ranked as a god on one list and a mid-tier on another. This chart tracks characters officially recognized as top tiers across 1,100 chapters. You can see this spike on the far right, nearly half of the peak threats revealed recently. Comparing these newcomers to 25 years of history breaks traditional math. We lack data points. Without a strict framework to filter this influx of data, we end up relying on subjective hype rather than the objective mechanics. To make sense of the current power hierarchy, we have to recognize a constant trade-off between evidentiary combat feats and narrative speculation. The evidentiary method focuses on characters with hundreds of chapters of on-screen data. We've seen their injuries, their stamina limits, and their maximum output. On the other hand, the speculative method elevates characters based on ancient lore, royal titles, or the assumption that they must be strong to fulfill their role in the finale. Community hype lists often treat these two separate things as identical. They place characters with decades of proven history right next to characters who have only been seen sitting in a dark room. Relying on these theories creates a problem when actual combat finally begins. If you've spent years assuming someone is invincible based on a title, the story's actual mechanics will inevitably contradict those expectations. This quadrant chart provides a tool to map these conflicts. We measure evidentiary feats on the x-axis and narrative importance on the y-axis. The bottom right represents the proven data cohort. These are fighters with high on-screen seats, but very little narrative mystery left. Here, we evaluate strength based on verifiable limits, looking closely at physical durability and stamina constraints. This creates an objective baseline. By looking at what has actually happened in the manga, we can define the universe's current, proven power ceiling. However, if you focus only on these numbers, you'll be caught off guard. The final antagonists are narratively positioned to exceed these historical records. Verifiable data is the most accurate metric we have, but it establishes a historical limit that the endgame villains are designed to break. In the top right, we find characters where high feats meet high narrative relevance. These are the active legends who define the current conflict. The primary metric for this group is advanced Haki, a system fueled by a character's willpower. We prioritize this system because the story explicitly states that willpower mastery can overcome all other magical or physical abilities. Using Haki mastery as our benchmark creates a consistent, universal constant. It allows us to compare different power types against a single, measurable standard that remains relevant regardless of what new abilities are introduced. Still, it remains difficult to scale these pure martial artists against the reality-warping anomalies we see at the very edges of the story. This willpower system is the most reliable way to rank the strongest active fighters, even if it can't account for bizarre magical outliers. The top left quadrant holds the speculative endgame cohort, shadowy figures intended to serve as the story's final bosses. We use narrative projection lines to rank these figures. Their placement is based on end-of-series potential and centuries-old legends, rather than anything we've seen them do. This method ensures that your rankings align with the thematic goals of the final saga. But the trade-off is significant. You are abandoning objective analysis for pure assumption. There is zero mechanical data to back these rankings up. Placing a figure at the top of a list based only on political rank or a shadowy silhouette is a guess, not a data-driven fact. Speculating on final villains is narratively satisfying, but it doesn't help build an evidence-based argument for how a character actually performs in a fight today. The author intentionally obscures combat data for these endgame figures to preserve the story's mystery. This decision tree helps you select an analytical style, objective data or story resolution. The evidentiary analyst focuses on verifiable feats, creating structurally sound mechanics that will be upended later. The narrative forecaster prioritizes speculative endgame villains, accurate but remaining placeholders until they fight. Identifying which type of analyst you are is the only way to avoid the frustration of comparing these two incompatible metrics. Evaluating the character hierarchy reveals the underlying architecture of the final saga. Calculating who is strongest today involves a different set of facts than predicting who will be the final obstacle tomorrow. Stop letting subjective, hype-driven lists define how you interpret the story's combat rules. The next time you see a power ranking, identify whether it was built using concrete feats or narrative fiction. When you understand the specific logic behind a character's rank, you move past the circular debates and gain a clearer view of how this story is actually built.